Welcome to the President and CEO Focus on the Middle Market podcast series, where President and CEO founder Paul Stukel discusses middle market issues with business leaders from across the nation. Today, Paul speaks with David Johnson, CEO of Crisis Communications Company Strategic Vision, about the Verizon NSA Public Relations Challenge and about the importance of rapid and effective corporate communication tactics in the midst of a public scandal.
Okay, thanks for taking a few moments. I thought your perspective on the whole NSA thing was quite interesting. If I may, I want to give you a sort of vignette from a past life of mine relating to Crisis Communications. My brother and I started a technology company back in the sort of mid '90s, and we had venture money and built a business and yada yada yada. And then of course the .com. It was a .com related business, and suddenly a lot of these .coms started going out of business. And I don't know if you recall, the Wall Street Journal had a column, and it was basically the death column. Here are companies that are laying people off; they're all going to die, right?
Right.
And it was unfortunate because we actually did lay a bunch of people off, but it was actually a very non-core part of what we were doing. It was almost like a bunch of people that were experimenting on some non-core stuff, and we figured, okay, we really can't afford these guys. Sorry, guys, you got to go. Well, one of them clearly tipped off the Journal, and suddenly the Journal has a reporter calling me saying, "Are you guys about to die? Are you in a death spiral?" And I said, "No, you're out of your mind. What are you talking about?" And I explained all this to her, and I had some help from PR folks, who I didn't think gave me very good advice, frankly. Of course I immediately called her back. I was scared to death. It's the Wall Street Journal. Everyone's going to see this, and we were in the middle. We were in the middle of raising a second round. We were pretty visible at that point, and so it was like, this is dangerous. We've got to fix this. And it was amazing. I called her and I explained to her exactly what the situation was in great detail. And lo and behold, because that didn't fit her story, lo and behold, there we were in the next column. Completely misrepresented. So I've been rather skeptical of these kind of press folks. So people like you earn your money, that's for sure. If you do it well, you guys earn your money.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And with crisis communication, just saying one wrong thing to a reporter, it can go the entire different way from what you intended.
Yeah, you really have to be extraordinarily careful, which is why I was interested in your take on the whole situation with Verizon and the National Security Agency. I think you've sort of suggested at one point, I think the natural tendency would be get out there and deal with it. Talk.
Usually with crisis communication, people in my profession, what you do is you want your client to, if there was a mistake, if there was a problem, product defect, poor quality service, apologize for it, get in front of the story, and then say how you're going to correct the problem. In this instance, though, with the 24/7 news cycle and the fact that it also entwines the political and governmental aspect, the best thing for these corporations that really are caught in it is to say nothing. And the reason I'm saying that is people are forgetting even what phone carrier it was. The focus now is on the political debate.
Right.
And for a company, when politicians are involved, when it begins becoming an argument over philosophies, you want to stay out of that crossfire. And the reason I say that is anything you say, number one, keeps your company's name alive in the public's mind that you were involved in this scandal. The other thing is, too, in your apology, in your mea culpa, whatever you do, you're going to have to take some kind of side. Yeah, we're sorry, but we were doing this for national security. Yes, we're sorry, and we shouldn't have done it. So you're offending somebody on one side of the political spectrum who's your customer.
Right.
Saying nothing, especially as this story continues to skyrocket, people are not talking about Verizon. They're not talking about Microsoft, realistically, or even Google or Facebook. They're talking about the political aspects. What did the president know? When did he know it? How long has this been going on? What types of information? What are the motives of Edward Snowden? They're not talking about the companies, and the business policy and, should the companies have done what they did or not. And for a corporation, you want your name gone. You don't want people remembering it. Issuing any kind of mea culpa just reinforces and keeps your name out there so people are shooting at you.
Well, and the proof there, I think, is your perspective, I think, has been borne out pretty well in the sense that the people that responded, the Googles and those guys, Verizon is a forgotten name. It's a forgotten name. Everybody rushed out to deny it, and they're still in the picture. Verizon is gone. No one knows anything. No one remembers Verizon. I think it makes sense.
That, and the other thing is too with Google, they were smart too with their PR strategy. They're not worried about the U.S. client base. Right. They're worried about overseas because they've been accused of really going into personal data, things of that nature. So what they've become is the defender of privacy, the defender of rights and everything with their mea culpa, with their response to it. They're going head on because what they're concerned with is more the overseas reaction, overseas investigations, and how they can jump on board and say, no, we're the champion, of not domestic security, but of personal security, personal privacy. And that's what we're seeing with because they're more concerned with the international audience. Verizon, though, they've become the afterthought. They're concerned about this domestic audience. They don't want to antagonize anyone, and they know that if they put their neck out there with any kind of apology, any kind of response, the media is going to be focusing on them rather than on the political aspect.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And even with Google, if you notice, yes, they got out there, they made their statements and everything, which was designed really for the overseas audience. You're not even hearing a lot about Google because they don't keep reinforcing it. Yeah. Usually with mea culpa, what you want, and they've been smart, they've followed a lot of what a PR person would say during crisis communications, is after your initial apology, you stay quiet, you back away to see how it's playing out. Well, they've stayed quiet, and now they're seeing how that's playing out, and it's playing out very good because what we're seeing is the stocks really aren't being affected whatsoever. And the other gauge, too, is, yes, the late-night comedians are still talking about this scandal, making fun of it, but they're not mentioning Verizon or these other companies.
It occurs to me that crisis communication has become even more complex in the age of two things: social investing, or at least the concept of social investing, and social media. For the former, of course, is we're going to take into account the values of the companies that we invest in or that we support, and hence activists will go after companies in a way they didn't used to for things like this. And then, of course, the social media side, where this may not be getting a lot of play in the media, but the social media aspect of this could create a life of its own, in which case you may be forced to respond simply because there's so much activity. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, has the world become
completely.
A little bit more complex because of that?
It's become more complex, and the thing is, too, how you word an apology, how you respond, is going to really determine how social media goes after you. As you said, there's two things to take into consideration. With the social media and everything, if you word something wrong, if it doesn't seem sincere or not, the social media people will be driving you. They'll be creating pages, why I hate Verizon,
a hashtag, there's a
Big
hashtag
Brother, whatever. I mean, whatever tag, and it'll be going on and on and on. And the other thing is, too, it remains alive in Google searches. And more, too, investors, Wall Street, they pay attention to the social media reaction with a company. How are people responding to it? And for a company, they have to gauge how are they going to monitor, what are they going to do, what kind of blowback can they get realistically. With Verizon, they were smart. You really can't go after silence. You can say maybe, they should have said something, they should have apologized, but after a while, they're not responding, they continue not to respond. There's nothing you can go after.
Right. Now, in terms of the media, and I'm kind of going back to my own experience. You get a call. I mean, obviously, Verizon's a big company, but let's say it's not that massive a company. Let's say it's a okay. I'll give you a good example. I can't use the name of the company, but a middle market producer of toys for kids.
Right.
And some child, it's a bit morbid, but some child swallowed one of their toys, choked, and died because something broke off or whatever. Okay, so big time crisis communication. You're a consumer company, and now you have, because you've never dealt with this before. Now you have people from the Wall Street Journal. You've got people from NBC. You've got people from who want to make a big deal out of this because it's in their interest to make a big deal out of this. Is that, I mean, obviously it's a different situation, but is being silent still a possible route? And if so, I mean, how do you resist that?
It isn't a possible route. I mean, of course, you want it to go away, but not saying anything, not commenting, especially when there's been a death or something, then what happens is you look really crass, cold, uncaring, and that's one thing in society today. People want the business leaders, people want businesses to be concerned and caring. And if you don't respond, if you don't get out there, offer condolences to the family, depending on what the issue was that led to this death, promising an investigation, promising changes, or the other thing, and this is even trickier, but a good crisis communications person will do this. If there was no negligence, no responsibility whatsoever with the toy company, if it was the child's fault and everything, or the parent's fault for not supervising, what you want to do, number one, of course, is get out there, apologize, offer your sympathy, and then you want to do a sit-down interview with a reporter, a consumer reporter, pointing out and going step by step on how this is safe and how a tragedy, as horrible as it was, occurs because of use.
Right.
The way that you do that, and I've worked with companies before, what you do is you practice that, something like that, for days on end.
Yeah.
Doing as far as the media training that goes into that and everything. I'm not going to say the client, but I had a client once. It was a consumer company, and what happened was there was a problem with it, one of their products and everything, and Connie Chung came down and everything. We did 3 days of prepping and everything before he sat down with Connie Chung.
Right.
Because the key thing is you got to stay on message, but also, how do you point out, yes, this was horrible, but had they followed the directions, which are very simple, everyone follows, this would not have happened.
Yeah.
Without really looking, cold-hearted, like you're blaming the victim.
Right. Fair enough. Well, and actually, I mean, I'm sort of switching gears here away from the Verizon situation and more towards the kind of company that I just described. So where you're going to take a more active role rather than stay silent. Again, going back to social media, I would think that your communication plan would almost have to include, and again, very, very carefully, but would certainly have to include social media, given the fact that that's the way that a lot of people get their information.
You have to. It has your apology, your responsibility, everything has to be put on the social media. You've got to be consistent with all of your modes of communication. Traditional media, social media, the blogs, everything. When you put out the press release, when you put out your statements, your interviews, you want them all posted, sounding the same, all looking the same.
Right. Well, certainly the message is going to be the same, although I would think that the content for each one of those channels probably has to be structured specifically for that channel. Does that make sense?
It does and it doesn't. And what I'm saying is, yes, I mean, there's a difference between a live interview or something, but with the social media and everything too, it's structured, but it needs to have that same look and feel that you're giving for all the other outlets.
Right. Yeah.
Because
sure.
when someone's going to go on there, they're going to expect that it's going to look the same.
Right. Right. Conflicting messages certainly is never going to work.
Exactly.
That's certainly true. Well, this is fascinating, David. Can you tell me a little bit about your firm, Strategic Vision?
Sure. We were founded in 2001, right after 9/11.
Oy.
And what we do is we specialize in branding, crisis communications. We work with medium-sized companies who want to go to the next level, or who have a crisis in which they need help as far as doing the media. We come up with overall PR and marketing strategies for our clients.
Be sure to check back for future editions of the President and CEO Focus on the Middle Market podcast series. Thanks for listening.